Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. We're going to talk about Spider-Man. Spider-Man comic books. Marvel Comics is walking back a very, very bad decision they made 18 or so years ago. They're actually undoing Sins Past, the storyline in which Green Goblin boinked Gwen Stacy. And there were some babies, and this is all a massive retcon and a big middle finger to longtime Spider-Man fans. Very controversial storyline, of course. Spider-Man would get more controversial a few years later with One More Day, which was again another terrible decision on the part of Marvel to retcon Spider-Man, to undo his marriage to Mary Jane. And I gotta wonder, is that coming next? Are they gonna undo One More Day if they're going back and undoing Sins Past? So we're gonna talk about that. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We're over 234,000 subs. Thank you so much for the support. We do talk about comics, we talk about animation, talk about pop culture, Disney, anime, whatever interests us that day. And I had somebody send me a link to this late last night. So hat tip to you, CK, for sending that over my way. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting that they're actually going to walk back this despised storyline. Now, for those of you who don't remember what Sins Past was, it was very controversial. Basically, good girl Gwen Stacy was kind of a slut, and she was getting it on with wrinkly old Norman Osbourne, and there were babies produced. I think this was J. Michael Straczynski did this storyline, if I remember, and this came about the same time as, let me think about. This happened, and then we had another alternate universe Spider-Man story where Peter's radioactive spider spunk killed Mary Jane. I mean, they really were gunning for the women in Peter's life, weren't they? They were like, I mean, it was bad enough that Gwen Stacy was gone. This is before I think it was before they brought her back, before Gwenpool was a thing, before Spider-Gwen was a thing. Gwen Stacy was dead. About as dead as you could be in the Marvel universe. And they had to bring her back in some way just to ruin her, spoil her, and turn her into, a girl who cheated on Peter and slept with Norman Osbourne. And people hated this. They absolutely effing hated this. And it turns out that it was untrue. It was all a figment of your imagination. And MJ knew the deal. She told Peter that, my memory is a little foggy about this. So I got to pull this up from, where is that? The Green Goblin's hideout. Yeah, it was a mess. MJ tells Peter that she knew about it. Gwen had an affair with Norman Osbourne 7 months before she died. MJ explained she had given Gwen her word she would keep the secret and not share it with anyone, especially Peter. MJ overheard an argument between Norman and Gwen just before her death. Massive retcon. I read this once years ago, and I was like, this is hot trash. And actually, I haven't followed Spider-Man with any regularity since the early 2000s, come to think of it. And then One More Day happened, and I'm like, fuck this. I'll read occasional Spider-Man stories, but fuck this. I'm not even interested anymore. But yeah, they ruined Gwen Stacy. MJ lied to Peter. Not that matters anyway, because they're technically not married anymore. But it was a huge FU to the fans. And now they're walking it back. Bleeding Cool actually has the pages up where it turns out it was all Mysterio, I think. Yeah. So this is Harry Osborn talking about Sarah and Gabriel, the babies. Don't you recognize them? Harry, what have you done? But he removed completely the story that Norman and Gwen had a thing. Harry, do you mean to tell me it was all a lie? That I was never with Gwen? Get real, Dad. She was way too classy for you. But hypnosis, whether administered by Mysterio or piped in through the walls of this mansion, can be tricky if the subject is resistant. So I had to appeal to your ego. Then Gabriel and Sarah aren't your children? No. But Gwen told me about them. I remember them, MJ. Ah, memories, all illusory, I'm afraid. Much like the man who planted them for you. Yeah, so they're walking it back. Newsarama has it. Marvel's officially rewriting the creepiest Spider-Man story ever. It's not the creepiest. The creepiest is actually Spider-Man killing Mary Jane with his radioactive spider spunk. I think that probably was the creepiest. But yeah, they're retconning it. Thank God. Amazing Spider-Man 73 invokes the most maligned Spider-Man story ever in writer Nick Spencer's penultimate issue. So that's what he's doing on the way out. Nick Spencer is undoing Sins Past on the way out the door because he's going to Substack or something. Yeah. So September 8th, Amazing Spider-Man 73 dives back into long dormant aspects of Spider-Man mythos and the sordid history with Norman Osbourne, the Green Goblin, which many fans have actively tried to forget. Yeah, I read it years and years ago, and I'm like, fuck this. I'm out. I'm so out. I'm like, it can't get any worse, though. This is like the all-time low. I mean, I was already on the fence after the Clone Saga. A lot of people now have like renewed respect for the Clone Saga and Ben Reilly and all that. I hated the Clone Saga. I did. I was like, this sucks. And then, years later we get this, and then they did, One More Day, which I gotta wonder if they're not going to undo that. Especially with the new Spider-Man movie coming out, it seems like they're going to touch on aspects of One More Day. And if they undo it in the movie somehow, I gotta wonder if they won't undo it in the comics just to try to win back old school fans. Because, we'll talk about that. Renew Your Vows was actually pretty popular, if I remember. This is kind of what could have possibly maybe would have happened had Peter and MJ stayed married, that we would actually have an adult Spider-Man with a kid, But anyway, Nick Spencer's run on Amazing Spider-Man barrels toward its conclusion. And they're going back to some of the most controversial Spider-Man stories ever, even as the current tale continues pushing up against the widely polarizing One More Day. Gotta wonder if they're not gonna walk that one back too. Spoiler warnings on. So here's basically what happened. We told you. It turns out that the babies were not actually Normans. Spider-Man 73 kicks off with Peter Parker arriving at Kindred's mausoleum, where all other major players in Kindred's schemes have separately gathered, including MJ, Mysterio, Norman Osborn, Carly Cooper, Harry Osborn, etc. Picking up where the previous issue left off, Kindred unmasks in front of MJ, seemingly revealing she's actually somehow a returned Gwen Stacy. Again. Meanwhile, Carly Cooper and apparently non-Kindred Harry Osborn discover another of Harry's dissected corpses still in the slab in her morgue. Blah, blah. Finally, Norman Osborn is confronted by an AI program of Harry in a laboratory seemingly filled with clones in various stages of development. Appropriately, the AI explains that Kindred's entire scheme goes all the way back to the story that immediately preceded and led to the controversial 90s story, the Clone Saga, which I hated. I hated the Clone Saga. I bought pretty much every issue of Spider-Man up until the Clone Saga from like 1985, 86 through the mid-90s. And then the Clone Saga happened. And I'm like, so everything I read for the last 10 years has been a lie. Fuck this. I was out. In that story, Spider-Man life theft, Peter Parker's long dead parents return only to be revealed as manipulation by the Chameleon. It's all one big fake out. The Harry Osborn AI reveals that Harry helped hatch the scheme before his death, along with a parallel scheme to take revenge on his dad. And it's the return of plot points now revealed as part of Harry's revenge against Norman that may make some readers' skin crawl, along with Peter's, MJ's, and even Norman Osborn's. The AI reveals that the death of his actual body was genuine. So Harry is dead. I guess he's dead. And what's more, he never actually returned from the dead. Further still, the AI confesses that the events of the controversial, much maligned story Sins Past are all a hoax, perpetuated by the AI and Harry's still living accomplices Mysterio and Mendel Stromm, effectively undoing one of the most hated Spider-Man stories of all time. Yeah, so now the next thing is, are they going to undo One More Day? Would they actually undo One More Day? I gotta wonder if they won't, because they said, they talk about One More Day and they said the connections have been building for some time and even seem to be stretching into the MCU, where the upcoming film sequel, Spider-Man No Way Home, will apparently incorporate aspects of One More Day. Basically, everybody forgets who Spider-Man is, including that universe's MJ. meaning fans may either be about to get some serious resolution for some concepts that have haunted the Spider-Man mythos for years, or about to dive headlong back into more of the most controversial Spider-Man plot lines ever. If they were smart, if Marvel were smart, that's a huge, huge if, they would walk it back. They would walk it all back and say, yeah, the last 20 years of Spider-Man, yeah, it didn't happen, guys. It didn't happen. Peter didn't mentally get it on with Aunt May. Gwen Stacy wasn't boinking Norman Osbourne. He's still married to MJ. It's all a bad dream. Wake up and a 32-year-old Spider-Man is taking a shower in his apartment. MJ walks in. It's like, oh, you're back. You're back. Everything's back. Everything's back to normal. That's what they should do. Will they do it? I don't know. They're desperate enough for old school fans to return to Marvel. They might have to start walking back some of these ridiculous plot lines that drove a lot of readers away, myself included. Like I said, I haven't read Spider-Man with any regularity for 15 years. You know, as soon as one more day happened, I'm like, fuck this, I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not having, everything get retconned. What's the point? What's the point of following any storyline if everything can be undone so easily? And I guess you could say the same thing about this. Like, there are no consequences. And I think we're going to wind up in a situation like that with the MCU too, where with the multiverse, there are no consequences. Time travel, the multiverse, all that. Like, we can undo, reset, whatever we want to do. We could very easily replace Captain America, replace Iron Man with another Tony Stark, another Steve Rogers, just pluck them from another multiverse or whatever, and there are no consequences. You kill a character off in this universe, well, they exist in 50 other multiverses, right? No consequences. But there it is. If they're really walking everything back, if this is Nick Spencer's parting gift to Marvel fans before he goes on to his Substack thing, it's kind of cool, but it might be too little too late. I don't know. I'm going to wrap it up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.